All right, this generating a lot of headlines. A Maryland court reinstating that murder conviction for Adnan Syed. That's the man accused of killing his ex-girlfriend in 1999. He spent more than 2 decades in prison, but his high-profile case was chronicled on the hit podcast Serial. And the sudden reversal came after a judge ruled that Syed was wrongfully convicted based on new evidence. That judge also ordered a new hearing in the case. Well, the appellate court ruled that a lower court failed to give enough notice to the victim's family, which Maryland law requires. Heyman Lee's brother weighing in on this, saying it was a violation of his rights. So joining us now to discuss this case, trial attorney and legal analyst Brian Claypool. Brian, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Sure. Hi, Natasha. Great being back with you.
So help us explain this. So the court reversing that based on the victim notification law. Can you tell us more about this? And ultimately, does it mean that Syed's conviction has a good chance to stay overturned moving forward?
Yeah, Natasha, this is a technicality. What the appellate court is saying is that Miss Lee's brother should have had a chance to appear in person at the hearing on the motion to vacate his murder conviction. He appeared by Zoom. I personally have a problem with the ruling because, you know, we've had a pandemic, and during the COVID pandemic, myself, clients of mine, and a lot of witnesses have had to appear in court by way of Zoom. So I'm not sure what prejudice this was to the Lee family for him to not be allowed to appear in person. So the million-dollar question is, how does this affect the new hearing on the motion to vacate the murder conviction? And the answer is it won't. My belief is that the court is going to rehear this. They're going to hear the same evidence at the motion to vacate the murder conviction. And the trial court is going to, again, vacate the murder conviction for 2 reasons, Natasha. First of all, the prosecution didn't turn over evidence to the defense that it was entitled to at the trial. And then secondly, the argument was that there were a couple of other suspects that were eliminated by prosecution prematurely.
Okay, so the conviction was originally overturned last year because prosecutors say they found alternative suspects and also unreliable evidence. But none of that was actually revealed publicly in the hearing. And we know the victim's family's attorney was saying, quote, decisions made by courts should not be based on secret evidence. Do you agree with them? And should we expect to see any of that evidence now?
Yeah, Natasha, I don't agree with that. I mean, if you look at the reason why he didn't appear in court in person, it wasn't the defense lawyer's fault. It was the prosecution's fault. They should have notified him sooner to appear in court. So why should Syed be penalized for a prosecution's mistake? And then secondly, make no mistake about it, there's nothing that Miss Lee's brother is going to be able to testify to at the next trial court hearing to vacate the murder conviction that's going to change the trial court's ruling. That's really the big issue here, Natasha. What's going to be different at this next hearing that the trial court has to conduct? And there's not going to be any evidence from Miss Lee's family, including her brother, that's going to change the outcome here. And my suspicion is that I think that the prosecution should reveal the evidence that's leading to this conviction being vacated. That should be submitted to court. But one other point, I mean, the Lee family is saying that he should have been told about this evidence ahead of time, and I don't agree with that.
Okay, and with the time we have, I do want to turn to another really high-profile situation playing out in court right now, the civil lawsuit accusing Gwyneth Paltrow of using a 2016 ski crash that left a 76-year-old man with what he claims are life-altering injuries. Now, Paltrow's defense this week, we know, filled with experts so far this week, also some high-resolution reconstructions of what they say happened. What are you monitoring in court right now, and how do you think it's ultimately playing out?
Yeah, Natasha, this truly is a case of dueling banjos. What do I mean by that? It's a he said, she said. It's not like the Murdaugh case where we had a video, right, of Murdaugh in the dog kennel right before the shooting. You truly have Paltrow's word against Sanderson's word. They both have an eyewitness that favors their version of events. They both now have biomechanical expert witnesses to support their version of events. So what's going to really determine this case? I think 2 things. It's going to bear down to credibility. And I think Sanderson sending an email to his daughter the day of the accident, Natasha, where he says, I'm going to be famous, I think is going to be devastating. And it's going to be why he loses, because it goes to why he's really bringing the lawsuit. And then you're showing a clip right now. I think this gets to the second issue why. Legal causation. In a civil case, you just can't prove I was injured and somebody was negligent. You got to prove that was a substantial factor in causing the injuries. And he got into court, Natasha, and he's like, oh my God, my life's ruined. My head is injured. I can't remember things. My relationships have been ruined. And I just don't think a jury's going to believe that even if Paltrow bumped into him, that caused the injuries. I mean, have you ever watched the X Games and the Olympics when these skiers are up in the air and they're falling and they're tumbling and they don't have any of the injuries this guy has? So I think that's going to lead to him losing this case.
Interesting. And Sanderson, the accuser, meanwhile, he's suing for $300,000, which is way below his original $3 million ask. So, I mean, I have two questions about this. One, does that indicate that his team believes that their case is not as strong as they thought it might have been initially, or that this isn't really going their way? And two, that $300,000 is a lot for someone like me, but it seems like a drop in the bucket for Paltrow. Why is she fighting this so hard, appearing in court, being photographed this way, being the center of headlines, instead of just making a settlement or a plea deal here?
Yeah, that's a great question, Natasha. And to answer your first question, this guy starts with a $3 million lawsuit. He reduces it by 80%. I mean, that does signal that his case is weakening. And what his lawyers are realizing is that it's about overreach. Remember, so your viewers know, that he initially also sued the ski facility, the ski instructor, and the court threw out those two defendants. That's important because it shows that he is trying to sue everybody on the planet for every injury on the planet. And to get to your other question, I'm actually refreshed by the fact that Paltrow is fighting. She spent a lot of money on defending this case because she wants to hold up her name and her integrity.
Yeah, I appreciate it and appreciate the insight. Brian Claypool, thank you so much for your time.
But thanks, Natasha.
There's plenty more news.